This is the strongest melee build that I've ever played on a 15 divine budget. You can breeze through tier 17s, uber bosses, and basically all pinnacle content in the game with ease without breaking your bank on anything. This video will teach you how the build works, how to play it, and how to scale your damage and defenses, as well as how to craft all your gear efficiently and easily. If you're interested in playing this build, I highly recommend that you watch the entire video, as there are some little annoyances about the build that you should know about before you try it for yourself. There will also be a spreadsheet in the description for all the gear with cost breakdowns for the crafts as well as the entire build. With that being said, let's get started. Before we begin, if you want to be part of a fresh new community on Discord where you can just hang out, chill, help each other out, or ask for help whenever, then join my Discord through the link in the description below. I also have my own guild, so if you are a new player or if you just want some more people to interact with in-game, send a message in the Discord and I will invite you. Now back to the video. Hello YouTube, how's it going? So the guide for the build is finally out. I've been playing this build since the leak start and it has been absolutely amazing. We use one primary skill for our damage, which is going to be the new Eviscerate Retaliate skill. This skill can only be used right after you block an attack or a spell to release two waves in a V shape in front of you. With a few points into AoE, these two waves can overlap in the center, allowing you to deal double damage to anything directly in front of you, which is how we will be fighting most bosses and tanky rares anyway. Retaliation skills, however, also have a cooldown before they can be used again. This is sort of the way GGG decided to balance these skills that deal a ton of damage to sort of make it equal. This does make the skill feel a little bit clunky, but using Gladiator's new Ascendancy node, Measured Retaliation, combined with the new Amulet Anoint, No Forgiveness, we have a 70% chance for our Retaliate skill to not go on cooldown and can be used repeatedly without having to block more attacks or to wait for the cooldown to reset. This does not proc all the time, so there will be times when the skill does go on cooldown and you have to wait for the cooldown to come back up and then to block another hit for it to be used again. However, with this much damage and this much tank at such a low budget, a little bit of clunkiness is a good trade-off. Our primary source of damage is bleed, and the main way we scale our bleed damage is using percentage increase physical damage, damage over time multipliers, physical damage over time multipliers, and global physical damage. We get this primarily through our axe. The one I'm showing right now is the one I'm using in the footage you see. It is absolutely not the best in slot or even close to it. I just got lazy and didn't bother trying to get anything better than this. We further scale our damage up using our two auras, Malevolence and Pride. Since the build gets so much damage so easily, we can heavily focus purely on defense, on all our other pieces of gear, and on most of our passive tree. In this league, GGG decided to add a way to hyper boost bleed damage by the use of aggravated bleeds. If you didn't know, bleed would normally do a ton more damage if something was moving while it was bleeding, but it was nearly impossible to force monsters to move around after you make them bleed. But now, with aggravated bleeds, it makes it so the bleed deals damage as though the monster is moving, even if it's not. This is how bleed builds are extremely viable and powerful again, and everyone is playing some sort of bleed build. Disclaimer though, it does not deal extra bonus damage if an aggravated bleed monster is also moving around. It still just counts at it as though it is moving just once, not multiple movement counts, nothing like that. We have chance to aggravate bleed on our glove implicit, on our passive tree, and on our vulnerability curse gem, giving us around 40% chance to aggravate bleeds, which is enough, sort of, but ideally you want to get even more on your glove implicit so that you have a much more smoother time aggravating those bleeds and getting to see those massive health bars just disappear. A note about aggravated bleeds: even if the skill that you use to aggravate the bleed is something as weak as your basic auto attack, it will still aggravate the strongest bleed on the enemy. So it doesn't matter what skill you use to aggravate, it will always aggravate the bleed that we apply from our main Eviscerate skill. In our setup, we will be using Blade Storm to activate our bleeds, as it places down a storm that continually hits the enemy, making sure that the bleeds we apply will eventually get aggravated. For defenses, the main reason we are this tanky is because we have nearly a 100% chance to block attacks, with a 88% chance to block spells. Though the max cap is 75%, we have the Gladiator Ascendancy that gives us lucky block. If you're unfamiliar with the term lucky, in Path of Exile, lucky essentially means that if you take a hit, a normal non-lucky hit would just roll and see if your 75% chance to block would block the hit, and then return a yes or no answer. If you have lucky block, it will roll twice and choose the better outcome. So if the first roll was no, you didn't block, and the second roll was yes, you did block, it will choose the yes. Even if the first roll was yes and the second roll was no, it will still choose the yes. However, there can be times when you are just simply unfortunate and you roll no twice, in which case you do get hit, and it does happen fairly often. It's not a rare occurrence, and if that happens and if that hit is extremely strong, you will just get one shot. However, we do have many other ways that we are scaling our defenses so that if a hit does go through our block, we don't just immediately die. We have 5 endurance charges, we have 81% fire res, 79 cold and lightning res. We are almost suppression capped at our budget level. If you want to spend more, you can be fully suppression capped. And we have 25k armor without any flasks up, so we do have a pretty decent way to sustain. We also use a max level vitality and endurance chart and enduring cry, so we are pretty good on defenses. So now let's go over the items. There will be a section at the end of this video again where I will show step by step how to craft each piece of gear. But for now, it's just an overview. Starting with the axe, we will be using a Reaver axe. Ideal mods on this are to just get as much physical damage as possible with an open suffix to craft fizz.multi. There is also a suffix for damage over time multiplier that I do not have on my axe, but if you can get that as well, it's amazing. This craft is a Syndicate Unveil craft, so if you do not have it, send a message in the Discord and I will craft it on your weapon for you. Our shield is a basic shield with suppression, life, resistances. We need an open suffix to craft ailment avoidance here, very important. And then our helmet and gloves are exactly the same, suppression, fracture, and chaos res essences, along with other useful mods. On the helmet, we do have Eldritch implicits to convert some of the physical damage we take into fire, as fire is our highest resistance, and extra vulnerability curse effect, which also scales the aggravate chance, not by a lot, but just by a tiny bit, but still. Glove implicits are also very important. I chose to go with the near unique monster version, since I don't ever feel that I need any extra damage to kill rares or any other mobs in the map. The chance to aggravate bleed implicit is also very important. This is the lowest tier. If you have better currency, I suggest using higher tier Eldritch currencies to get a higher aggravate chance. Boots are very important. We need the ailment avoid chance on our suffixes as well as the implicits at the top. This is how we get a big chunk of our ailment avoidance and become fully immune to all elemental ailments without needing to use anything expensive like a Storm Shroud Jewel or anything of the sort. Our body armor is very simple, very similar to our gloves and our helmet. We have high tier life or no life for the mastery and good resistances along with suppression. The Eldritch implicits are very straightforward. It's physical damage taken as fire again, and aura effect. Again, I chose the near unique enemies aura effect because rares die very easily anyway, and if you want to be doing tier 17s, any extra damage that you can get for the really annoying bosses is just very nice to have. For our rings, we will have one ring as the one with majority of the attributes that we need on it. We struggle a lot with intelligence and dexterity, so having one ring with both of these attributes and attribute catalysts on it is ideal, and the other ring helps cap out our resistances. The amulet slot is a funny one. This is a 1C amulet. It might even be 1 ALC by the time I post this. We don't care about our attack speed being reduced or our cast speed. We care about the max block chance that we're getting, as well as the base chance to block attacks. This lets us drop 3 points on our passive tree that we need to get in order to cap our spell block. More on that in the passive tree. But this being such a cheap amulet, as well as saving us 3 passive points, and it has options for very strong corrupted implicits because of it being so cheap. So the one you're seeing right now, I paid 10C for this, for all max res and Pride Aura effect for 10C. Yours doesn't have to be like this, right? You can get one with Malevolence Aura effect, quantity of items, all elemental resistances, max res, whatever you feel like getting on your amulets. However, a corrupted amulet does need a tainted oil to be anointed, and that is expensive. So if you don't want to spend extra on that, you can just use the 1C amulet with a high roll on the attack block and anoint it that way. However, I would suggest, if you have the currency for it, go for a decent corruption, because it will just feel very, very nice. Even one max res is amazing to have. I do have an extra amulet that I was using before I got the double corrupted one. So if anyone wants this, just come by and take it. It's just sitting in my stash doing nothing. So just whoever sees this first, just whisper me and I'll just let you have it. It's doing nothing in my stash anyway. I tend to just give out randomly whatever extra things I have from when I was leveling up a build or when I was doing whatever else. So take that as you may. Our belt slot is the best in slot built for any and all attack-based characters. This gives us a massive boost to our attack damage, thus boosting the strength of our bleed. The stronger the hit, the stronger the bleed. It does have a roll for less attack damage. That means we have a large range of damage. We can do like way less or way higher, depending on how lucky we are when we attack something. This also combos really well with volatility support to give us an even larger range. So sometimes you'll high roll and instantly delete something with a very high rolled bleed, or sometimes you'll hit something really, really low and just tickle it for a bit until you hit it again. But most of the time it'll be a mid roll, and that's more than enough damage to kill most things anyway. For our flasks, we have 2 different flask setups. One that I use for tier 17 maps to get more survivability in case a hit goes through my block, and the other setup I use if I'm doing tier 16s, and if I just don't care about dying once or twice in tier 17s at the cost of more speed and rarity. I have opted not to use a Quicksilver flask in most of my setups. I'm only using this here because I know other people like to have their movement speed. I would recommend using a Granite flask or a Bat Salt flask instead for some extra tank even while you're blasting. Just because in this build, our main skill has a cooldown, so moving fast doesn't really do much for us if our ability is on cooldown anyway, so keep that in mind. All of our flasks also do need to have charge gain on hit to sustain flask charges and have as much uptime on them as possible. Suffixes are increased armor, increased evasion, and movement speed. You can replace the movement speed with reduced curse effect as well. Craft these flasks yourself, please, with alteration orbs. Suffixes can be on whatever flask base, as long as you have all 3 somewhere. Don't forget to craft use when charges reach full so that your flasks are fully automated and you never have to touch them. Then we have our life flask, simple, corrupted blood immune and bleed immunity with instant recovery. Almost every build uses the exact same flask. Tinctures. Now, this is something new that GGG added in Affliction League that they have now added to the core game. So, to explain, you turn this on, it starts draining your mana and to give you a very strong buff. In our build, this gives us nearly 10 million more damage while it's active, but we can only keep it active for around 5 to 8 seconds, and then we run out of mana. There are no fast charges for this. We can turn it on and off whenever we want. However, there is a 6-second cooldown in between uses, so to keep that in mind, the best way to maximize damage on single target is to stand in front of the boss, Enduring Cry for endurance charges, because they scale our damage too, cast Vulnerability, put down a few Blade Storms, max you can have is 4 Blade Storms, and then turn your Tincture on, and then slash once, maybe twice if you got a reset, and just watch the boss's health bar melt away. Sometimes you'll high roll and you'll see the boss just absolutely disappear. Sometimes you might low roll on the first hit and then need to hit again 2, maybe 3 times to get a high roll of bleed. But even still, the build has so much damage and so much tank that you can just keep hitting or not hitting and just watching as the bleed DPS just melts everything away. The passive tree for the build is very simple. We put a lot of points into scaling our defenses with a few points into whatever dot multi nodes and physical damage nodes that we find on the tree. The key notables to explain are unwavering stance, which makes it so we cannot be stunned. We don't want to evade anything anyway, since we want to be blocking as much as possible to proc retaliate. We use Versatile Combatant. This is how we use our attack block to scale up our spell block. This does reduce our max chance to block, but thanks to Lucky Block and some more max block scaling that we're getting from the Amulet and some more passive skills, we get it up pretty high anyway. Last notable is Iron Reflexes, very important. This converts all of our evasion rating into armor so that we can safely use evasion gear to cap our suppression while converting all of the evasion into bonus physical mitigation. Another very important part of the tree, however, is our lethal pride. This is extremely important. This jewel gives us a ton of damage through the global physical damage line that you see on all of these passives, and it gives us a massive amount of strength. Every single node you see, the travel nodes, are all giving us strength because of this lethal pride jewel. Why do we want more strength? Well, if you know anything about me, you know that I love having my entire passive tree tattooed up. That's right, we were going to be using every single tattoo on every single node that you see on the passive tree is going to be tattooed up. We won't leave a single strength node away. We will turn all of them into bonus physical damage. These are very cheap tattoos. They're like 3-4C each. 5C if you use the currency exchange bulk trades. So this one jewel, while it gives us the global physical damage, it also gives us a lot of extra physical damage because it allows us to use tattoos on everything without needing a strength roll on any of our gear pieces. So there will be a part in the spreadsheet which shows the best mods that you can get on your lethal pride. We don't care about the notable passive that we get from this. We just care about the small nodes and the physical damage that we get. So keep that in mind. The one that I got, this cost me a divine. That's it. And these aren't selling. There were 5 of these on trade when I last checked. This specific one with these specific mods, and they have all been up on trade for like 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. The one that I bought was 2 divines. I messaged the guy. I was like, hey, will you take it for 1 divine? He said yes. I probably could have asked to go even lower than that, but I didn't want to lowball any further. But you get the idea. People have been trying to sell these for a while. No one bought them. If this video gets popular, however, these might sell out pretty quickly, which is why I'll leave a list of other mods that you can get that would be cheaper and easier to find on trade. If you do not know how to use timeless jewel calculators to find your ideal jewel, let me know and I'll post a separate video about that. So we also do use a cluster jewel. We only care about these 2 mods on a 8 passive cluster jewel. Nothing really to explain here except just use jagged fossils with single resonators until you hit this. We also utilize this shield mastery together with the boots and the shield to be fully ailment immune. We need the Eviscerate AoE here to get that overlap double damage that I spoke about earlier. I had extra dexterity on one of my rings, so I used tattoos on the dexterity nodes here for extra evasion rating. However, you probably won't really have extra dex, but if you do, if you have extra dex, tattoo your dex nodes. If you have extra int, which is probably going to be impossible, but if you have extra int, then tattoo your int nodes with reduced crit damage. That's probably going to be the best one because crits do hurt if they get through your block. A tier 17 map with bonus crit goes up to like 800% crit multi on monsters. So if they do crit you and you clicked a few altars that reduced your armor a bit, you will just disappear. So keep that in mind. It does get rippy. And also we use these suppression nodes here to fully cap out our suppression along with lucky suppression. Ascendancy is pretty straightforward. We take extra block here to path over to the lucky block node. We take this to get a chance for a retaliate skill to not consume a cooldown. For mapping and clearing, I suggest using gratuitous violence. This will make blasting maps feel incredibly smooth, including T17s. But for maximum single target damage, I suggest War of Attrition. However, disclaimer, this feels a little bit bugged to me at the moment. I don't know how other content creators and streamers and players feel about this, but I feel that if you move away from the boss, it does reset the bonus damage that you're getting, and it also never feels like it's actually giving you 100% more damage. I have tested this by standing AFK next to a boss for 100 seconds, not moving, and attacking it versus me immediately attacking it in a different map. It felt minimally more damage, not anything like I had 100% more damage. So I'm not sure what's really happening there, but it does still give more damage. So it's still going to be better than the explosions for single target specifically. So do take it with caution. I'll also quickly go over my gem links. I have a Blade Storm in my 4 link with faster attacks, Culling Strike, and Maim. Maim gives us bonus physical damage, while Culling Strike is just always good to have, especially versus tier 17 bosses and some of those tanky rares. You can also replace Maim with item rarity support as well. I put white sockets on the gloves so that I could freely swap out item rarity and Maim while bossing or mapping. Then there's Enduring Cry and Ancestral Cry. Enduring is great for endurance charges for bosses and life regen, while Ancestral Cry just helps give you that extra bit of max stress if a boss is about to do something really painful and you're worried you might not block it. This also helps against elemental ground degens, especially during invitation fights, so keep that in mind. Shield Charge and faster attacks, pretty simple. We have Blood Rage for frenzy charges while clearing. Our self-cast Curse vulnerability and Flame Dash as our second movement skill. We have our auras, Vitality linked with Arrogance, and Pride and Malevolence in a separate link. In our weapon, we have our Cast When Damage Taken Molten Shell setup, as well as our War Banner. I always forget to put down the War Banner, but if you remember to put this down at the boss at the end of a map, it will give you a ton of extra damage. This gives you like 6 to 7 million more damage if you put this down at maximum charges, so keep that in mind. Our main 6 link is very straightforward. There's only one single gem swap to do here, and that is to swap out Expert Retaliation for Cruelty when you want maximum single target damage. Otherwise, mapping or clearing, you will be using Expert Retaliation for more quality of life with that cooldown reduction that we're getting. That pretty much covers every single thing about the build. If there is anything I've missed, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments. I answer every single one of them, or join my Discord or my guild and ask whatever you want in the general chat. I'll make sure to answer everything there as well. Reminder that there is a spreadsheet in the description with the cost breakdown for all of the gear, as well as some tips on how to play the build effectively and what you should avoid if you don't want to brick your maps. I'm now going to cut over to me going over step by step how to craft every single piece of gear for this build. If you know what you're doing, feel free to skip it, but if you need some extra help, feel free to watch it. Cheers. Peace. So here we are in Craft of Exile. Time to go over every single thing step by step, starting with the axe. Right, so you want to get a item level 84 Reaver axe. Nothing else. No other axe matters. You need level 84 Reaver axe, not a royal axe, not a butcher axe, a Reaver axe. Right? Item level 84, Reaver axe, done. And you want this fractured with percentage increased physical damage. Right? There are two different ways to craft this. There is one with this thing fractured, and there's another way to craft it with the other percentage physical fracture. This is more expensive and way harder to do, although it will lead to a way better axe in the end, almost guaranteed. However, I'm not going to go over that setup. I will write that down in the spreadsheet if anyone wants to do it. I will be going over how I made my axe. So I took this fracture. This cost me around 10 divine. This is the most expensive item in the entire build. Don't worry, this is the only thing that you'll be spending money on and nothing else. So you get this fracture, and then you go over to essences and you spam essences of contempt until you hit 2 different mods. So ideally, the two ideal mods that you want to hit are percentage increased damage, so that mod right there, and you want to hit damage over time multiplier on the suffix like that, and you want one open suffix to craft physical damage over time here, right? So this would be your ideal looking axe, right? This is the ideal axe. This is exactly what you want to have on your axe, right? But it's not easy to get increased fizz and damage over time both on your axe. So which is why if you see my axe doesn't have this. My axe is this, along with the essence mod. It's not here right now, but this is my axe in the POB, in the game. This is what the axe that I'm using. So what you want to do is you want to spam your essence. You want to spam essences until you hit this mod right here. See this mod? You want to hit this. Ideally, you want to hit it a bit of a higher tier than this. Sorry, my brain just lagged. So tier 6, not good enough. Keep going. Right, we only use 3 essences. We hit tier 3. We keep going. I'm going to spam this a bit fast. And I'll stop when I see the mod that we want. So, very unlucky. We haven't even seen it. Oh, just went by. It's tier 6 again, so we keep going again. Game again. Tier 7, gross. Oh, tier 6, gross again. Tier 7, okay, this axe is just cursed. It's not going to be this unlucky, trust me, you will hit this a bit more frequently. Okay, so we're going to stop here. Yes, the mod that we hit is tier 6. However, we hit damage over time multiplier in the suffix. So getting these two mods together is absolutely insane. This will give you a way better axe, even though the tier of that increased fizz isn't that high. But the problem with this is that it has full suffixes, which is not what you want. So you do have to YOLO annul and hope that you hit either one of these two suffixes and not the prefixes, only the suffixes. There is no other way to do this because everything else is full. You have to YOLO annul. Boom. Congratulations, you'd hit the correct suffix. Your axe is done and dusted. You craft this on. You're a happy camper. This axe is stronger than my axe now, so congratulations. The last thing you need to do is just go over to King's March and get your Runesmith enchant. It will cost you around 15 war runes for a medium one and 25 or 30 war runes for the maximum one. So war runes are pretty damn cheap, so just get the maximum one and there you go. That is your axe. If you want a very, very endgame axe, you'll probably be using a elder base, and that is very expensive to craft on. So this is just the endgame axe that I would recommend. If you want to scale it up even more, then up to you. This is the only expensive part of the entire build. Nothing else. Everything after this will be very cheap. So speaking of everything after this, let's go over the helmet next. So you either want a dex or a strength dex base. You either want a dex or a strength dex base. Strength dex bases are more expensive, so ideally just go for dex, right? And go for the base that you can afford. This higher level base that you buy, the more difficult it's going to be to get your dexterity attributes up to that point, and also it'll be more expensive. So I bought a Sinner's Tricorn. It was cheap. It was well within my dexterity requirement at the time. So pretty easy. So you buy this and you want to get this with fractured suppression, minimum of 11. You cannot go lower than 11 suppression on any of your gear. That is your helmet, your gloves, and your boots. I mean, not your boots, your helmet and your gloves. Right? You need this much suppression. Okay? Everything after that is very easy. Just go here, grab Chaos Res Essences, and spam until you hit a high tier of life in your prefix and some tier of elemental resistances in your suffix. So you keep going until we hit something like this. That's perfect. So we hit a tier 3 fire res, tier 1 life in our prefix, and we have 2 open prefixes. So you're going to craft a mod to block it so that it doesn't roll. So I'm going to craft, let's see, let's just craft on flat evasion rating. I don't want flat evasion rating. I want percentage evasion rating to show up when I hit this exalt. Will it? It won't. We got rarity. Tough shit. See? So that's completely fine. Rarity isn't that bad this league anyway. That's more gold. So you got rarity. It's good enough. And you just craft on percentage increased evasion rating. There you go. Higher roll, please. Higher roll, please. Higher roll, please. There you go. And there's your helmet. Right? Tier 1 life, Tier 1 chaos res, Tier 3 fire res, and evasion rating. Perfect. That's your helmet done and dusted. Only took 10 essences. It'll probably take you a bit more. That was a little bit lucky. But these are very cheap essences. You don't even need to have deafening essences. You can use screaming essences as well. That's what I used because I was being cheap. But yeah, that's up to you. Exactly the same thing for our gloves. Get a base that you can afford, like that's available within your rights. I got a harpy skin. It wasn't that expensive at the time. Some harpy skin gloves. I got it with suppression fracture again. I got a 10% suppression fracture on this, which was doable because of the suppression that I got on my body armor and my shield. But ideally, go for 11. Go for tier 2 suppression. And then exactly what you did with the helmet, you will be doing with the gloves as well. Spam chaos res essences until you hit a high tier of life and some tier of resistances in your suffix. So we're going to keep on going until we hit something like this. Okay, so it's not the best tier of life, but it is tier 1 res and the suffix, and we even have some physical damage in our prefix. It's not a lot, but it's okay. Right, and then we just go over here, go to crafted things, and then we can craft percentage increase evasion rating and life if you want a bit more life, or you can just craft percentage flat evasion rating to get more evasion rating. Up to you. Ideally, just want the life and the fire res. Gloves are done. Took like 9 essences. Again, that's pretty lucky. You want to hit, if you want to go for more essences, you can. They're pretty cheap. It won't cost you much. Right. Next up, the boots. These are a bit harder. So bear with me. You want to buy slink boots with suppression. Again, 11 minimum or 12. Right. I'm gonna go with 11 here though. Can you give me 11, please? 11, please. There you go. 11. Okay. So 11% for suppression chance, but here we'll be using a different essence. You want to use loathing essences. But so you see here, these are actually a pretty decent pair of boots. However, we need the ailment avoidance to be 35. It can't be anything else. It has to be 35. So the only way to make this 35 would be to start divining these boots. And you don't want to waste divines on boots like this. That's just a waste. Right? So just keep using your loathing essences until you hit 35 ailment avoidance and some other good mods on the side. It's not as hard as you might think. So I'm going to keep going here until I hit 35 with other good mods. Okay, so here we have 35% ailment avoidance. We have tier 1 res in our suffix, and we have tier 3 movement speed and 2 open prefixes. Okay, so this can be something that happens. It took us 46 essences to get here. These are not that expensive. These are like 3C each, so you can spam these. It's not that bad. This is like 100C worth of essences right here, so it's not that bad. Actually, no, it's more than 100C, what am I saying? But it's still not that bad. Okay, so what we do here is we're going to craft on a mod that we want to block. So I want to block, again, I don't want flat evasion rating, so I'm going to block flat evasion rating if I can find it. For whatever reason I can't. There it is. Right. Block that, and I want to hit life, so I'm going to cross my fingers, slam an exalt on this, and hit life. I hit percentage increased evasion rating, a tier 1 of that, so I'm happy with these boots now. Very happy. I'm going to craft life. There we go. Craft life. High tier, please. Oh, well. 69 life. These are now your boots. You have resistances, you have ailment avoidance, you have evasion rating, everything. Then to finish off the ailment avoidance, you just want to spam your Eldritch Ichors. You want to spam Graders until you hit ailment avoidance. There we go. There it is. At 18%, and then you just use a Blessed Orb. It's not saying that it can't use it on Craft of Exile, but you just use Blessed Orbs to get some 20%, and then you're done. Boots, done. Easy. So now we come to the shield. right? So again, shield, dex base, because it's much easier to work with a dex base. Right? Ideally, you want to get the highest amount of movement speed, because we do lack a bit of movement speed. Just get the base with the highest movement speed, and you start crafting on this. So in game here, I don't have a fractured base. That is because I just lucked out and ROG made this shield for me with high suppression, high life, resistances, and everything. But not everyone is going to be that lucky, right? So to craft it yourself, again, you go in here, you get a nice cheeky suppression fracture, tier 2, right? If you can get it on a Crusader buckler, get it on a cheaper base, whatever is within your budget. And then we will be using, that's a nice regal orb. We will be using Essences of Envy, again, because there's nothing else really that we want to use for this, right? We just want Chaos Res. So we will be spamming this until we hit Chaos Res, all elemental resistances, or some kind of resistances, and life, right? However, right, we want, sorry about that. So we will be spamming Chaos Res Essences on these until we hit very good prefixes and one open suffix. You want an open suffix. So this shield right here, very good prefixes, right? Extremely good prefixes. Tier 1 evasion rating, life, but we have an open suffix. Oh no. There's no way to deterministically remove this attack speed, so we just YOLO null, and we missed, and we miss, and we miss, and we miss. That's just great. Right, so go again until something like this, like we have life, but we don't have good prefixes, so we just go again. So here again, we have life, and it's great, but we have this closed suffix, so we just YOLO null, and we missed. So we go again until we have again good life and an open suffix. All right, so here, quick note: if you hit avoid elemental ailments as one of your suffixes on your shield randomly, then you're done, right? But you need this to be 25%. It can't be lower than 25%. So that is why you will have to roll over this, unfortunately. But if you get 25%, then it doesn't matter what your prefixes are, you can keep this. Just a quick note. So here, again, tier 1 life, but dumb full suffix. So YOLO null, miss, go again. Okay, so here, we're actually done. Right, here we have good life, good hybrid life, chaos res, and we have more than 28 on our shield. So very important, if you get more than 28 on your, more than 25 on your shield, you can get less on your boots. So I would highly recommend to craft your shield first and then craft your boots, so that if you hit this on your shield, you have way more leniency and can roll better mods on your boots without having to need 35% ailment avoidance there. So shield is done. It has an open prefix, so just craft on whatever you want there. There's many things you can craft on from a shield, right? You can craft evasion rating, you can craft percentage evasion rating. Those are the two best ones, right? I would just recommend to craft on percent evasion rating every single time, because this just gives you the most value, right? So craft a high roll, right? And you're done. There's your shield. Congratulations, it's done. Now for the hardest part of this entire thing, okay, that is going to be your body armor. So you're going to be buying the highest possible base, the highest one, right? Buy a 6-linked one, or if you want, you can 6-link it yourself. But if you don't want to do that, then just buy a pre-6-linked Martial Brigandine or a Conquest Laminar. I would recommend to get a Marshals, because you might not have enough dex or enough strength after tattooing to be able to use this. That's why I'm using the Martial one. But if you have a lot of dex through a ring or something, then go for this. Alright, so let's just pretend that you did have enough, so we're going with this. So any good fracture on one of these new bases is incredibly expensive. So you're not going to be going for any fractured bases here at all. Okay, so we're just going to grab a base. We're going to grab our cheeky Chaos Res Essence, and we're just going to start hitting. Okay, you will hit and hit and hit until you hit suppression. That is basically it, right? That is all you're going to do. You will keep on going until you hit suppression. So here you hit tier 4 suppression. Try to get better tiers than this, so keep on going. Use Screaming Essences of Envy. Don't use Deafening because this one will take a bit longer. This one will be hard to do. Just keep on going. So look at this one. Here, this is Chef's Kiss, right? Tier 1 Chaos Res, Fire Res, Tier 2 Suppression, Tier 1 Life with 2 open prefixes, right? It took us 53 essences to get here, right? But we got here. So what do we do now? Pretty simple. Again, you go to craft and mods and you craft something that you just don't want to see show up in the Exalt Slam. So for me, I craft on flat something because I don't want flat something to show up. So I'm going to either craft flat evasion or flat armor. In this case, I'm just going to craft on flat evasion rating and then Exalt Slam. Boom. We got tier 7 hybrid. It's not the best, it's not the worst, right? So you can either do this or you can just get that. You could get hybrid this, you could get hybrid this. It's completely random, right? But even if you just have this and no other prefix, this is still a very, very good body armor, right? Instead of this craft, in the end, you would always want to craft on percentage increased armor and evasion. So here, that skyrockets your armor and evasion rating. So this is your armor. Then if it's not 6 linked yet, and 6 link this. If it is 6 linked, then great, and you're done. That's your armor. Now for your rings. Rings are fairly, you can probably buy the rings as well. They won't cost that much off of trade. But ideally, you want 1 amethyst ring. If you have enough resistances on your other pieces, you can go for 2 amethyst rings, right? And you don't need the fracture that I have. I have physical damage to attacks fractured onto the ring. It's a very cheap base, but it doesn't give you that much damage. But because of the fact that we don't really need anything else in the prefix anyway, we just want life and 1 open prefix for non-channeling skills. So you don't need this fracture, but you can get it. It'll just be more damage in the end. So there's 2 different things that you can do after you get this fracture, after you get the ring base, right? So you can either use Deafening Essences of, where is it? Delirium, right? This will give you damage over time multiplier on your ring. I mean, these are pretty damn expensive. Right? These like 30C per click or something like that. So you will ideally end up spending a lot of these essences before you hit a ring that has literally anything decent and usable on it. So I've clicked like 17 different times and I haven't even seen a decent roll of life once. Right? It was a tier 6 roll a while ago and now life isn't even showing up. Right? So instead of doing that, instead of breaking your bank in this way, just go harvest, reforge, chaos, boom. And here you already have an insane ring, all res, tier 1 chaos res. Don't really care about the percentage increased lightning damage, and then you just craft life. You craft on non-channeling skills in the end, but first let's just craft something random. Let's craft mana, Exalt Slam. You got evasion rating, that's pretty gross. Let's just try again. Energy shield, all damage attacks, life. It can be pretty random, but ideally getting tier 1 chaos res and chaos res on the ring is pretty sexy. But if you don't like it, you can just keep on reforging. It will always give you chaos res if you reforge chaos, right? If I was you, I would keep going until I hit dexterity on this ring, like along with good chaos res. It is very cheap per click. It's like 75 yellow juice per click. So you can click this many times until you get dex along with life, something decent, right? So up to you. I'll leave the ideal mod for your ring, this ring specifically, in the spreadsheet. If you get anything close, ideally you want to craft your rings right in the end so that you just use these as your way to just fix up anything that is left to fix, right? Your Chaos Rest ring would ideally just be mostly for resistances, right? You want this to have most of your resistances on it so that you can use a resistance catalyst as well. You will want to use that before you start crafting, by the way. So just use that beforehand. Big important disclaimer there. Use a catalyst before you craft something. Right, so here, we had Chaos Res, we had Res, we had Dex. I was going to YOLO Exalt Slam. You got mana, whatever, right? You got evasion rating, whatever. Right, then you craft on non-channeling skills, cost mana. Where is that craft? Here it is, tier 1, oh, it's tier 3. What am I doing? There it is. You want this to be -7, right? There you go. And then that is your ring, it's done. Doesn't have to have life on it. I got pretty lucky with the life that I have on this ring. I was not expecting it. That's ring number 1. Ring number 2 will be a bit different. So again, ring, this can be any ring where you still are missing some resistances, right? So if you already have really high tiers of res on all of your gear, then you might not need this. But let's say you are a bit low on fire and lightning res, then you grab this ring, right? You get your 2-stone ring with fire and lightning res, and then you just use an intelligence essence. I forgot the name, I think it's spite. You use essences of spite on this ring until you get something just amazing. Right? These are cheap essences to use. Use this until you hit intelligence and dexterity along with life. So here it's intelligence, it's life, it's dexterity, no good resistances, so you can keep going until you hit something like, I don't know, like this, but ideally with better life and dex, right? So that's ideally what you want to do. So I'm going to keep going until I hit something that I like. Okay, so here we hit tier 1 dex and tier 1 life. Tier 1 dex and tier 1 ints to the essence, and we even have some rarity, and we don't really care about the attack damage least as life. However, if we can exalt slam something good on this, this could be the ring. Even if you don't hit life, this is still a very decent ring. Let's just pretend that we crafted the mana there. Exalt Slam. We got cold damage to attacks. It's not ideal, but having that much dex lets you skip dex on your other ring, lets you put on more tattoos, lets you put on the higher tier armor. So not having life on your ring isn't the end of the world. You're still okay. You will probably be using attribute catalysts on this ring, so you don't need any extra res anywhere, right? For me, my attribute ring was the other one, and this ring ended up being the resistances ring. So that's just what I ended up doing in the end. However, you can just do whatever you feel like. This is the ideal based on how you craft the other gear, right? I just got lucky with the gear I had, so that's why I kept it that way. So this is what your gear would be. In the end, this is what you have, and then you craft on the same thing that you did on the other ring. -7 to mana cost of spells and abilities. There you go. There's your other ring. Just attributes, because we are really attribute starved. So there's that. There you go. Ring is done. Shield is done. Axe is done. Boots are done. Gloves are done. Helmet is done. Everything is done. If you really quickly want to see how to craft your own jewels, not cluster jewels, but jewels, it'll be a, let's just go with the, where is it? Why am I blind? Viridian jewel, right? Here's the jewel. You want to get this fracture on your jewel. There you go. This will be fractured. And then all you do is you go to harvest, you go to reforge, you go life, and then you keep clicking this until you hit percentage increased life along with, there you go, and you're done. This has 3 mods, it's Exalt Slam or YOLO mod. You don't care about this one, doesn't matter. You just want 3 good mods and you're done. You will make all of your jewels exactly the same way. Just roll, reforge life until you hit this. Fill all of your jewel sockets with this. There you go. that is everything, every single thing about the build. There will be a spreadsheet in the description for all the cost breakdowns for all the different pieces of gear. It will have extra crafting tips if I think of any afterwards, but I'm pretty sure I covered everything. My throat is dying. I need to stop talking, but I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this helps anyone that is getting ready to play the build, wanted some help with the crafting. If it helps, if you made it this far, comment down below and tell me to drink some water because my throat is absolutely dead. And remember, you are not as useless as you might think. You can always be used as a bad example. Bye-bye.